they ended up telling me that Steve liked me and I had to be approved by Steve's manager, a guy named Ewart Abner, who I had no idea who he was, where he came from, but he was from Chicago. And one of his claims to fame is when the Beatles' first record, the one of them in the apartment building looking over the little, that record got offered to Capitol. And Capitol is like, nah. But then Ewart Abner at VJ Records in Chicago grabbed that record and put it out here in the United States. So he's the one for introducing the Beatles to the United States. And he ended up becoming Stevie's manager for decades. And he had lost an eye. There's a famous story about one day people found him in the lobby of Motown just beaten bloody. And from that, he had lost an eye. And I could be wrong, but I think that had something to do with Steve, them trying to make him have Steve do something, sign something. And he refused and, ended up giving up his eye. And that made him and Steve like inseparable, as well as him just knowing the music industry from the street up in such a way. And so at the end of the first week I'm around Wonderland, he shows up. Hey, how you doing? I hear you're from Chicago. Mention Universal. He starts talking about Universal like he's done 1 million sessions there. He's like, oh, you know Foot. I'm like, Foot's like my mom. So he ends up calling Universal and calling Foot. And, they couldn't believe that I ended up over at Stevie Wonder's, the people in Chicago. And, they gave me whatever they said to him, I was in. And at that point, everybody on Steve's recording team, they were all white. I think I was the first black person that Steve kind of brought in. And then, like I said, the novelty is not that I'm black, but I can handle myself in the studio. Yeah, I ain't no joke. And people got scared. At least that's my impression. And I know certain people were up for their contracts to be renewed and the new guys around. And then very shortly after that, I had every hit on the radio that I was doing someplace else, not at Steve's. And so then I was able to bring Tina over to Steve's. And Steve gave me, the Third World record. Him and his guys did their 2 things, and then I did the rest of the record with them. Eddie Murphy's record. He did Party All the Time with Rick. I wasn't involved with that at all. They did that in Buffalo. But all the other songs, he did at Wonderland with me. So all the little stuff that they kind of started opening the doors with were at Wonderland. I was the guy that was doing them. I found out that my mother and my father both died when I was at Wonderland. I got a call from my father, and then I got a call from my sister, almost 2 years to the day, telling me my father died. So yeah, that's that little spot down on Western, 729 Western, I think is the address, is so instrumental in my life. That's where I turned down Thriller. I don't want to go into that story. But back to street songs, we're working on that, and we only worked on it a month.